Welcome, everyone, to the Meaningful Hearts podcast, where we discuss the everyday questions that make us or break us if we let them. With your hosts, Drew and Daniela. Take our hands and let's walk this journey together. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Meaningful Hearts podcast with Drew and Daniela. And today, we would like to talk about how to build a fire in your relationship.
Woohoo!
Now, how to get that fire started, or how to keep it burning, and how to keep it ablaze. So that's the key, right? We don't enter into relationships in the beginning and let the novelty wear off, and then we're in this mundane, blah relationship. There's building blocks like kindle that goes into a fire to get it started. Once it's started, you add bigger pieces to keep it ablaze and keep it nice and hot. Now, it's not anything sexual, guys. Okay, we stay out of the gutter with this one. This is very basic. You can take it wherever you want. That's fine. You guys can do whatever you like with that.
But sex is important in a relationship too. Just saying.
It is.
Which we'll get to.
It is. Sex is great in a relationship, but you need these things because these things lead to sex. Right?
I don't say that these things lead to sex. I would say that they're part of the relationship.
Certain side effects may occur. All right, no seriousness, no. There is a few things that everyone should need to know. I can't English very well today. It's been a long one. But let's start off with clarity.
Wait, before you begin, I would also like to add that is it a disclosure or a disclaimer? I don't know what kind of statement that is, that this is just so that people are aware. These are the things that you and I have used in our relationship to build the relationship we have. We've been together for a little over a year now, which is not long in like retrospect, but I like to think, and I'm sure that you would agree, that we have an amazing relationship. So the things that we've used in our relationship, we thought it was good to share. You don't necessarily have to include these things, but this is what's worked for us. I know there have been relationships that I've been in the past that within the first couple months, I already knew I didn't want to be in the relationship, and yet I found myself stuck. So wanted to give that, wanted to throw that in there, if that's okay.
Yes.
So now you can go.
Now I forgot what I was going to say.
Well, you were going to start. I can remind you. You were going to start with the first thing that we used.
Clarity, right? We came from two different places. We had our own experiences. But coincidentally enough, now this was intentional, we actually had clarity. We had experience and we knew what we wanted. We knew what we were looking for, and we knew what we didn't want. I think that was the real key, is understanding what you've had in the past and didn't work, right? The definition of insanity is trying to do the same thing over and over and over again and expecting a new result. Well, with relationships, it's no different. If you keep dating the same type of people or same things that you think are serving people that are good for you, you think are good for you, but you get the same result, it's probably because you're not trying anything different. Some people are like, oh, I have a certain type. Well, that's horseshit. There are a lot of great people out there that have mixed and match types of personalities. Well, find that. That's cool. But clarity, knowing what you want is very much the key. The start, it's definitely the start. And knowing what that is and understanding what healthy is and what not healthy is also part of the clarity spectrum that you should understand before going into this. Daniela, did you have clarity?
So yes and no, at least for when like you and I started seeing each other, I had clarity on what I wanted for myself for a relationship. But as far as like knowing that I wanted a serious relationship with you, like the minute we met, and I know that's not what you
No.
meant. Just give me a
So what is that?
just give me a second here, because
Okay.
this is something that somebody could take that as being that way. But clarity doesn't necessarily mean knowing this is the person that like I want to get into serious relationship with without actually knowing them. I think clarity is knowing where you stand in your, I guess, like your emotional availability, which, in talking about that, one of the things that I was so impressed by when you and I started seeing each other and we were talking on the phone, I think it was like literally like the second or maybe the first, even the first phone conversation, you were asking me about my life. And then you asked me, are you emotionally available? And I was like, wow, I've literally never been asked that question before. So knowing where you stand in that regard, clarity in that sense. And even if you don't necessarily know what you want, or you didn't know that you, or you don't know if you want a serious relationship or not, if you want to just have a good time, just get to know somebody, that's part of clarity too. But really understanding what, kind of like what you were saying, right? Knowing what you've taken from your previous experiences, what you're bringing into the current experience, having clarity on that. You know, you don't want to go into something with somebody not knowing how your previous experiences have shaped your decisions. And even if you don't know, even just being clear on that, like, hey, listen, I'm learning about myself, or whatever the case may be, having clarity in that sense is what I would add to what you're saying.
Exactly. Exactly. And just to let you guys know, I also was not looking for a serious relationship, because both of our friends were like, yo, you guys are really going the distance. Like, you guys aren't just hanging out. It's like you guys are starting to get something serious going here. And it's like,
yeah, neither of us expected that, which I think, fun fact, Drew and I actually met completely by chance. I have a close friend who I've known since high school, and I know his family and stuff, and his uncle was having a party, and he invited me, and he also invited Drew, and we'd happened to meet at that party. I remember, I think one of the first conversations we had was about Mindhunter. I remember thinking like, whoa, like this is so cool. I've never met somebody like that. It was really awesome. It was a chance encounter, which um might not happen often, and it happened for us. But I also think that it's wonderful that it happened for us, because now we get to share our experience with people listening. And it's not to say that it's not possible, because I think that I fully believe that there was a part of me that chance encounter came to be able to happen, because I knew where I was. I was finally in a place where, I had gotten out of a relationship that was unhealthy. I had checked out of the relationship way before the relationship had ended. And I was finally in a place where, like, I know what I deserve now. I know what's for me. I know what I want to manifest for my life. And then here Drew showed up wearing a red
yeah,
blazer matching my red shirt.
yeah, it was the least likely place that I would definitely look for,
For
a
sure.
match or somebody to date. I mean, it was a party with alcohol. Not being not much of a drinker going forward. She really doesn't drink either. And our mutual friend, who usually, if he brings a girl with him, he's usually with that girl. He's not like bringing a friend along, which is it's just the odds are crazy. And on top of that, we weren't sure. I wasn't sure if I was going to go. I really wasn't going to go, and I went last minute. And same thing with her. It was kind of, it's just so. Like I said, the opportunity and being ready for that opportunity to come together. It's like anything you prepare for, success in life. You could get the moment to get that big break, but if you're not ready for it, it's not going to happen. So keep that in mind. That's clarity for you. Now, the second one, babe. What is that?
I'm gonna let you take on this one too, and I'll follow your lead.
That's not fair, but okay.
Well, I think that clarity and the second one that you're about to share, I think it was what you brought into like our relationship, and then some of the other ones that we are thinking to share. I know there's one in particular that's not more important, but that's of value to me. So, we'll talk about it in a little bit. But yeah, I think usually with the second one.
So I think clarity and intention are like closely related. But I think that for me, it was very easy to make my intentions clear on what I was looking for. I wasn't
Hence the
trying to
emotional
sugarcoat.
availability question.
Yeah, it's not that I was like, oh, I'm looking for a serious girlfriend. I just needed to know, hey, I enjoy your company. I enjoy speaking to you. If this were to go further, are you open to that? Are you open to being there? You know, are you open to, like, some people like, oh, no, I can't. I've been hurt before. I can't be with anybody right now. I'm like kind of on this journey of being single. It's like you don't really get to choose when the right person comes to your life. So I wanted to know that. I wanted to know that off the bat because I kind of had a sense that she was special. I had that sense.
I
I
am
had that sense.
special.
We had that spark, that connection. The way that she speaks, the way she handles herself, super duper smart. It was like a brain stimulate. We both stimulated on a intellectual level right off the bat. I'm obviously physically attracted, but mentally it was like, wow. But I needed to know that, right? I needed to know that she was in that place. And just stating that, some people are so afraid of this. It's like, I'm so afraid to make that clear because I don't know how it's going to affect the other person thinks about me or what's going forward. And listen, if that's how the person thinks, then they're not for you. And that's okay. Like, not everybody's supposed to be at the same place in life. But it's just always good to just don't create an assumption or like, oh yeah, I think that the person kind of knows my intentions. Don't play that game because that's kind of jerk. That's kind of being a jerk. And I know people have done that, and I've done some stuff in the past myself because I thought it was slick. But in reality, state your intentions. You know, and it's exciting. It's part of the getting to know you phase too. You know, paint the picture for that person. And understanding, you also want some insight on what they believe or perceive to be a healthy relationship, or what they perceive to be a healthy encounter. These are things you need to know, because if somebody has a really distorted picture of that, that's another thing you'd want to stay clear of. Like, yeah, maybe that's not for me.
Yeah,
But
I'm gonna just interrupt you just
go
to
ahead,
go
go
off,
for it, go for
just
it.
to add,
Let's go.
just to add to that particular thing is you really don't want to excuse me, you really don't want to mislead somebody. Like, I know for me, like I just mentioned, I hadn't been out of a relationship for too long. And that was something that when we started seeing each other, when you asked me, I was very honest about it. And I had said, you know, there may be some things that I'm still healing from, not in the sense of like, I miss that person, or if that person were to come back in my life, like I would be conflicted. It wasn't anything like that. Like I said, I had checked out of the relationship long before it ended, but I did have that intention of being honest with you and saying, you know, there are things that I'm healing from just from being in abusive relationships. And I know that I have triggers that I have to work on, but I'm letting you know that, you know, so many of us, I know in past relationships myself, there were things that I wasn't even aware of that would come up in situations when I was with somebody. You know, there's like that really it's like really cliche, and it's unhealthy, but people really do stray away from having clear intentions because they're afraid to get hurt, which is not, it's not bad intentions to have, but it actually ends up working against us sometimes because we're not fully uh, honest and open about our intentions. We're kind of like, well, you know, there's situations where somebody's like, well, I don't really know like where this is going to go, so I'm not going to open myself up 100% because I can't trust that person. But that's certainly, I made it a point. Like, I've been hurt in my past, I've been abused in my past, but that doesn't mean that you, Drew, would like, I couldn't trust you. That had nothing to do with you. And I remember us having conversations about that in the beginning. And I know that there are stories that we hear, you know, social media about like toxic relationships, and I think they get to that point because they don't clarify their intentions. They don't clarify or even do the work in trauma, and they're realizing what traumas they've had. You know, you've mentioned some really good questions, understanding what is a healthy relationship. I know I certainly don't come from a background where I learned about healthy relationships. I learned about that as an adult. Even, you know, you and I are still learning about what goes into
Yes.
healthy relationships. And I don't think that people ask themselves those questions enough. And I understand, because it is very hard. They're not easy questions to answer. Nobody wants to think about the pain that they have caused others, or that others have caused them, or think about like how their parents, may have misguided them. Nobody wants to think about those things, because it means the reality changes. But they are very important questions to ask and go with intent. Yeah, I
Yeah,
rambled.
no, that's great.
You were like
I
nodding your
mean,
head the whole time.
you're saying exactly. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to interject it. No, keep going. But yeah, I think that's clear to state your intentions and know, hey, this is where I stand. This is what's going on with me. And if we proceed forward, it's not like I didn't explain that to you. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's very important. And just starts the trust. It definitely starts the trust moving forward. It's like, wow, you're giving me a lot. You're giving me something. And in return, I'm giving you something. We're forming a bond very early on. And most people don't realize they wait they wait later on to start securing, like giving that the trust points. But if you could do it early on and say, hey, listen, I've been hurt in the past. This is a new blank slate. I've gotten over those things, because me too, in the past, I was like, I'm never getting in a relationship again. This is crazy. I went through a lot. To go through this all over again. But I had to go through that evolutionary process before and get back to zero before I could actually be with somebody. Because I did date in between, but I wasn't healed yet in that sense. I have other traumas and things that I've went through that I need to that I working and healing from, and that's something I also vocalized to her. So we were on the same page in that, and I think that is completely okay and awesome to do. Don't be afraid to be yourself ever.
Yeah, it's so cliche to say that, right? But we really are. A lot of us are so afraid to be ourselves, and that's honestly what ends up. We end up shooting ourselves in the, what's the saying? You shot yourself in the foot with those things. And I just want to again emphasize that these things don't necessarily. We're sharing from a perspective of you and I. We eventually did fall in love and we're in a serious relationship, and that's what we use. But I think that these, I guess, foundations could be used in any really type of relationship, and not just a romantic one, whether it's casual dating or whether you're looking for something serious. This also goes for friendships too. Would you want to be friends with somebody who is going to project, or not be clear about their intentions onto you? You want to surround yourself with people who are honest, who are looking to grow in that, in every sense, but in this particular sense as well. So it doesn't just only apply to serious relationships, even though we're speaking from that point. I think it can fit really any type of relationship.
Yeah, you want to surround yourself with well-wishers, people that don't want you to be alone, so that they could be with you alone, like, and be like your misery companion. You don't want that. And I see that a lot. I see there's always great people, and then there's always that friend or somebody. It's like, not really happy for you. Even happy. All right, I use the word happy. Whatever that expression you guys is not joyful, not feeling it towards you. That happens. I mean, I'm not going to name names, but somebody close to me, a relative, recently started dating somebody.
I love how you say you're not going to name names. You said a relative.
I said a relative. I said a relative. That's a relative's not a name.
Yes, and it's pretty like
I have a relative named relative. Whatever. Mm-hmm. That person started dating somebody, and the friend who is single was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be left all alone." That was her response. Like, what? You're gonna leave me alone? Like, you're not gonna be like, "Oh, I'm happy." I'm glad that you have somebody. You found somebody. Instead of saying that, she said that. I was like, "Oh."
I'm like wondering who you're talking about. We might have to talk about this like off the air.
See, she doesn't know.
I don't know.
See,
yeah, for anybody's curious,
if she really doesn't know, then nobody's gonna know.
Yeah, no, I don't know who you're. I'm literally like, who is he talking about right now? But
yeah, so all right. Well, I'll leave it there. We get too far off topic. I just wanted a little sprinkle of, it does happen. I still witness it.
I mean, I've experienced that, even with like, like when you and I got together, there were I had this one particular friend at the time who, the way that she would speak when I would talk to her about you can tell, like, you can tell when people are subtly like saying things that they're just like, they're not fully 100%. People want you to be happy, but they don't want you to be happier than them. That's also like another saying.
Yeah.
um and I, like you saying that, that's what I thought about. So yes, I don't know how you
Yes,
got to
that's
that.
exactly the same dynamic
Yeah.
of what you're talking about with the other person that I'm talking
Right.
about.
Okay. Which I think honestly is a good, I guess, like kind of a transition for the next part, which I think this was a really, really big one for me, which you can apply in all types of relationships. And I really emphasize this just in general in life, which is boundaries. Boundaries is a really, really big one for me. And that, this is where you have to go back to do that self-reflective work and ask yourself, what are my boundaries? That's what I did for myself. I know you and I had those conversations about boundaries and what that looked like. I've got sexual trauma in my past, so sexual boundaries was a big one for me to discuss and be open and honest about. But boundaries also, what are your financial boundaries? What are your emotional boundaries? What are your physical boundaries? Not everybody likes to hold hands 24/7. I personally think that my palms get sweaty and I need a little bit of a break, and you need to communicate with that. You need to communicate that with the person that you're talking to, or friend, or whatever type of relationship, because you don't want yourself to find yourself going back on the boundaries because you don't want to hurt somebody else's feelings. I know, like Drew and I, one of our difficult conversations about boundaries was this. I laugh because, like, thinking back on the conversation, a boundary for me is, I didn't really grow up in having my own space. I mean, I slept, and not that I'm ungrateful, but it was just things that happened, right? I didn't have my own room. I didn't have my own space until I was well in my 20s. So I started to realize that a boundary for me was really valuing my space. My room is like, I mean, room to anybody is sacred, but to me in particular, because of my experience, it's super, super sacred. My alone time, my space, and also just my experiences in relationships. I remember one time, something came on the Actually, I actually remember we were in my apartment, and my mom was watching the news, and there was like a study that came out, or like an article about how, I guess, like couples and sleeping apart, I think, like some of the time, and they were talking about it, and I remember saying it to you. Drew's looking at me like, oh God, she's bringing this up again. But I remember saying to you, how do you think that you would feel if I took like one night of the month to, sleep in like like either a separate space or a separate bed, not because I don't love you or not because I don't care about you, but that's just really what I value. I Drew, if you want to give some insight into what that was like when you were first hearing it, I'm more than willing to listen.
I mean, I'm like, what are you saying? Like, when you live with somebody, when you're with somebody, you share one bed. I mean, I was like, I don't understand why you wouldn't want to, stay in bed with me all the time,
Yeah.
I was like, it's like crazy to me. I'm like, what are you saying?
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, it was.
And I was like, I was really not trying to hear it.
Yeah,
I was like,
it was definitely. I'm sure it was difficult to hear at first, and then give some time or revisit those conversations. I remember you later on went to make like after because boundaries are also about explaining yourself. You don't want to have a boundary and not let the person feel like they're excluded and they're not understanding. And I remember explaining myself to you. I just want you to understand this boundary is important to me because of X, Y, and Z. Like, for example, one of us might also snore a lot, kind of having that space too. Or if I get home from a really long day at work, and I just want some alone time, that's also okay too. And after explaining these things, I remember you even made a joke after, something about like having chips on the couch or having the best food or having the best meal or something like that. But that's really what boundaries, I think that's a good example of boundaries. And I do think that, especially for me, and I think women might be able to relate, because I think I don't know about men, but women, uh, I guess like boundaries, especially when it comes to sex. You know, sex sometimes, if not most times, uh, means more. I mean, at least from my experience, I'm a woman. Like, sex is more. Like, to a man, it can be too, but I think sex to a man can also be physical. And I think that women can be just physical as well, but it's more emotional. So, understanding those boundaries and being able to express those boundaries, I think is pretty important. Yeah, I know I rambled a little bit.
Well, I mean, I like boundaries too. There's just certain things I explained to it, like said, you know, like I want to go hang out with my friends. I want to hang out with my friends, you know, like not if we have plans, but
Sure.
it's kind of like just talking about it. Hey, I want to go do this today and just go do it. Not like it's a problem, you know, in
For
past
sure.
relationships, you go and do something and then you get the third degree. Like as if breathing alone was like a sin. I wanted, you know, I just want to hang out with my friends. It wasn't like I did anything crazy. I just went, you know, went and had a drink or just hung out for a little bit, but it would be a problem. And I said, hey, you can be yourself. You have a social life. Everybody's allowed to have a social life. We can coexist with our friends together and separate, but it's very important to have a social life. It's very important to have peers. You know, she has a career. She mingles with people at work and she does work events, and sometimes I'll be there and then sometimes I won't. There's things that she has to do. This is her as a professional. This is her spreading her wings and growing and flying, right? And I think that's important. My ability to grow and be creative and be in my own box and do the things that I want to do while coexisting together and being respectful. There's a difference. Being respectful in what you do. There are some people that cloud that judgment and say, I'm going to do whatever I like, and this is me, and you can accept it. That's toxic. That's not what I'm talking about. So that was something we talked about. We spoke about scenarios from the past, things that we dealt with, and then we were shamed for, and in doing nothing wrong, being shamed for just being yourself. And that's all comes down to boundaries. You know, we talk about sexual, emotional, physical, little things. Maybe just living together and sitting in a room and watching something or reading a book or writing something or drawing, and not having the person like right next to you. That's okay when you live with somebody. The problem is when you date somebody and you hang out, that's different. That's hangout time. But when you live together, you're always together. So there's time where you do spend to hang out together, and there's time where you do your separate activities.
Yeah.
And that's okay. These are all things that we talked about in great detail, like right away.
Yeah.
we were just like going through we were like going through the handbook. We were going through the whole handbook. But it was fun. Like, we had a lot of laughs, and that really helped develop, believe it or not, developed a bond. Like, wow, I want that. Me too. You know, it's like, and this is all in the early stages.
Yeah. And I remember actually, because I think that it was certainly the case for me in previous relationships. And I think it's common in unhealthy relationships where people feel like they can't do these things, like go out with their friends and, just do their own thing. Like, if I wanted to, I don't know, take a dance class, or I don't know, learn how to play the saxophone or take a pottery class, and I wanted that to be just for myself. I remember feeling like, wow, like, this is almost like, is this too good to be true? Because you were like, yeah, like, if you want to do those things, like, if you want to go out with your friends, and have fun. Just let me know, like, that you're safe. That's all I really care about. I trust you 100%. And I remember thinking, like, oh my God, like, is that like a thing? Like, is that true? It took me a while, because I had come from relationships where, and it's not to, also as a side note, the things that I've learned from my unhealthy relationships, I just had a thought that, like, I don't want people to, I guess, think that, like, we're just here to, like, bashing, like, our previous experiences, because that's not the case at all. It's just what I've learned. And I was with people who hadn't dealt with their own pain, who hadn't dealt with their trauma. And that's why these things transpire. It's not because they're evil people. It's not because I hate them. You know, I wish, the relationships that I've been in, the people, I wish them well. I hope that their life is good. So just as a side note to that. But there were times in the past where I would say like, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. Like, I'm going to do this. And I would get the, where are you? Like, what time are you going to be home? Like, why don't you want to hang out with me? Like, you can't, all you care about is your friends. You know, I even got that from like my mom. My mom would say things to me when I was like, I remember not wanting to be home. She would say, oh, you're only happy when you're with your friends. And I think that that's common in relationships. So to be in a relationship with somebody who's like, yeah, like, babe, go have fun, you know, and sure, like, I'll send a text throughout, like, oh, I'm just thinking of you. Like, I'll send you a hug or a kiss or whatever the case may be. That's always super cute, right? And it's such a relief to be able to have that. And that also plays into, I get the boundaries that we were talking about. Andrew just like smiled when I said a hug and a kiss.
Yeah, it's awesome. Like, listen, just because you're away from your person, you know, the person that you're with, doesn't mean that you don't miss them or love them or care about them. And honestly, often enough, I'm thinking about her even when I'm with my friends, and I'll send her a message, and it's great. It feels amazing, because you do need some time apart.
For sure.
You do need some time apart. It's we're living on this planet, and there's interests and things that we do that makes us who we are. When we have somebody in our life, they're complementary to that. And it adds a whole nother dimension. It actually will help nurture more of what we have inside of us, so that we can give more.
Yeah, because we can feel like we can be ourselves.
Now, that also comes with having a good group of supportive friends too. You don't want friends that are
sure.
not good for you. I wouldn't be glad that she was hanging out with friends that were toxic or friends that were up to no good. Sure. I think she would feel the same if my friends were up to no good all the time. And, you know, she knows my friends.
And you know my friends.
Yeah, it's not like a big secret. And I do know there are a lot of people that have like secret friends, or they lie to their significant other, and they go do other things. And it's like, like, that's like type of stuff that you lie to your parents when you go have a drink when you're 16. Like, we're adults now.
Yes.
Like, if you want to be in a relationship, there is a respect level, and there is boundaries, and there's things that you do as a respectful thing, you know, and that's it. And if you don't want that, that's fine. But just understand that you can't operate in a relationship and be that way. You don't make your own rules and then you have expectations of somebody. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
Just, you got to find your own. You got to talk these things out.
For sure.
It's a partnership. To, you know, and you know, you get into a business with somebody, you say, hey, yeah, let's get into business together. You don't even know if that person handles money well. Sure. You don't know if that person has good people skills or sales skills or bookkeeping skills. They have no, like, what are they bringing to the table? And is it going to be complementary to what I bring to the table? That's really what it comes down to, right?
Yeah.
So, which brings us to our next one. The lovely Daniela will bring on to the next one.
Can you do this one and I'll do the following one? Unless you really want me to do this one, then I'll do this one.
No. Respect and understanding. Now,
just so that I just throwing it in there, I encourage you to do this because I feel you're so good with respect and understanding. Like, genuinely. You understand everything.
I'm a very understanding person, I guess. You could say that I'm very respectful and understanding.
I wouldn't guess. Because, I know.
Okay.
Sorry.
You know, I'm being modest. I'm being modest. But so for me, because I demand respect and understanding first and foremost, I'm not a traditional person. I'm a little bit of weirdo. I'm a little bit out there. And I want somebody that understands and respects me, understands the, you know, my needs, understands the things that I like to do, and is supportive. I think that's a great thing to be supportive. When we talked about growth and being better than we were the day before, reading books, podcast, and just talking about some of the things we like to do together as partners, like, that comes with like, wow, that's awesome. I'm into that. That's cool. Like, you want that support. Or maybe there's something that is a little bit weird that she wants to do. That's like kind of maybe not something I've never ever done before. Maybe it's, I don't know, classical music and eating snails. I don't know. I've never done it before. But I guess also it comes with respect and understanding is being open.
Yeah.
Being open, right? And knowing that, coming from that place of being humble, I I understand her, and I'm very multidimensional in that sense. So I guess, having that ability, if you can find that person you can understand and respect in that level, I think your relationship is going to thrive. It's big.
Yeah.
I know there are a lot of people that are in relationships that are like, oh yeah, my partner does that. I think it's fucking weird and it's crazy and I don't like it. But they do. It's like, go do that over there. It's like, and it makes me wonder, like, that's how your relationship is. Don't you want to like enjoy what you're, we can't enjoy everything. Don't get me wrong. But for the most part, you want to be able to be on that level with that person and be like, wow, I'm very interested in what you're doing. It's not like, it adds such a dynamic where you guys enjoy and know what's going on in each other's lives. Like, she plays sports. She likes to play soccer. Made me want to play soccer again too.
Sure.
Like, it's just things like that. And of course, when she needs space, or she's going through some things in life, and is nothing against me. And we have this, we clarify, listen, it's nothing to do with you. It's just, I'm going through some stuff right now, and I'll talk later about it. And we clarified that, not prying, but she comes around, she talks, adds on to the communication, right? The communication's up there. Yeah, the communication is the dynamic, but it's very important. But she clarifies that, and then we talk about it, and I'm there to support her. Maybe she just needs a hug. That's it.
Yeah.
No talking, just a hug. It's little things like that, and vice versa. There's things that sometimes I'm, and I have that safe space to speak. I have that safe space to be understood, and I have that safe space to be respected. Well, going back into the past where you didn't always get a very warm reception.
Yeah.
And that's really tough. It's very tough.
Yeah. Within respect and understanding, that was one of the things that, like, I love so many things about you, but the fact that I can say to you, listen, babe, I've had a really long day at the office. I don't really feel like talking much right now. And to have you say, okay, take your time, take your space, like, that is just such a relief, versus sometimes when partners, like, one of them has had a long day at work and the other one is like, well, why don't you want to talk to me? Like, that puts such a strain, because now I know, certainly for me, it would create a sense of obligation. Like, I would feel like, damn, like, I can't even have my own space. Or when we talk about like the traumas that I've had, and when we talk, you're just so understanding. And I think the other aspect of respect is how we speak to each other. We don't necessarily, I know you don't your background, like how you grew up, it wasn't the the best, to say the least, on respect and how people spoke to you, spoke around you. I know for you and I, respect is speaking, the way that we speak to each other, even especially when we're having a disagreement. So many people normalize like yelling and cursing and flipping out. That's unhealthy.
That was me at one point in my life.
And I've been on the
saying that I wasn't there.
And I've been on the receiving end of that. And
not from me.
Not from you,
clarify.
yes, to clarify, not from you.
Clarify.
But I think that also goes into respect and understanding, is knowing, what do you define as respect? I know that was conversations that you and I had as well, and it's self-reflective work that I did. Especially when I've been in relationships that have been extremely unhealthy, I needed to learn for myself. What is a non-negotiable for me? Is like cursing and like out of frustration, like just something that, when you're driving and you're like, oh, like, damn it. Like, is that a sign of disrespect? Is that a trigger for me? I really had to ask myself those types of questions. And I think that it's important for people, just when they're learning about relationships, to ask themselves these questions. What does it mean? What do I want my partner to understand about me? How can I respect my partner? How can my partner respect me? All of these things play into respect and understanding. And if it's okay with you, Drew, I'd like to go into like kind of like I don't know if it's like the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah.
But communication, effective communication, it's so important. I would say that, and I thought it was good to save this until the end, because like I just said, it's kind of like what is the base for all the other things that we've been talking about. Because without effective communication, you've pretty much got nothing, at least in my opinion. And I think Drew agrees with me because he's nodding his head.
Yes.
And it's really important to learn how to effectively communicate. I remember when you and I first started talking on the phone and just seeing each other, and we were talking about feelings. I remember I would say to you, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like, I'm going to share something that's really uncomfortable. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but this is important that we talk about this." Or I would say something along the lines of, "Hey, like, I want to share this with you. I either need you to like listen to me or like give me feedback." And leading with those things, I think, has been super important in how you and I communicate, because I'm already disarming the defensiveness that might come from uncomfortable conversation. So many people will say, "Well, you make me feel this way when you do this." Nobody makes you feel anything. Like, that's my personal opinion. We feel the way that we respond to things. People might mean to hurt you, but at the end of the day, or they might not mean to hurt you, whatever the case may be. But that is my belief. Nobody actually makes you feel things. It's the actions and how you internalize that causes you to feel. So when we lead with assertive communication, when you say, "I feel like," if, say, for example, if we're having a conversation, you, Drew, and myself, and I'm trying to talk to you and you're on your phone, right? I would say to you, "I feel ignored when you're on your phone," versus like, you doing that makes me feel like this type of way. You're still essentially saying something very similar, but you're saying it completely different at the same time, because you're taking ownership of those feelings. And that really plays into effective communication, which is like so important. Yeah.
Communication is an ongoing developing skill.
For
It's
sure.
not something that you master it, or I speak, I talk, and and if you don't get what I'm saying, then it's your problem. It's not like that. Being a masterful communicator, if that's masterful,
I don't think
if I tied that in
masterful is
properly.
a word, but we can pretend that it is.
Masterful is,
Is
I
it?
believe so.
I might have to fact
Yes.
check you on that one.
Mike Tyson said it, so it's definitely a
Masterful.
word. Yeah.
I'm gonna fact check you.
But being an effective communicator and being able to literally articulate yourself and speak concisely, speak with few words, but get across exactly what you mean in the tone that you want to say it, and have it received on the other end properly, is such a skill. It is such a skill. And we let emotion dictate how we're going to approach a situation. We shoot right off. We shoot right off the hip when somebody says something to us. I do it all the time. Something I work on, but I could think more. We all could think more. We no matter what the scenario, we automatically respond like, "Oh, I know the answer." But taking a moment to think and then digest and speak,
sure,
it's going to change everything. No matter what the interaction is, whether you're at the drive-through getting a sandwich, or you're speaking to your coworkers, or even if you're speaking to your spouse, it could change everything. It really could. It could affect the way you speak on the phone to somebody. It could change, asking them how their day is doing, as opposed to just moving ahead with what's going on in the problem that you have. Taking a moment to ask them how they're doing and truly mean it. It's amazing how you could literally change. You could disarm somebody immediately, and they're like, "Wow, I want to help this person now. They're really nice." I'm sure you've had an interaction where like, "Wow, somebody was really nice to me where I didn't expect it. That server was so nice to me," or the gas station attendant. I'll probably go to that gas station more often and see that person, and I want to be even nicer when I see that person, because that person is so good to me. And it's so crazy how such a few words can change everything for you. So, in doing so in your relationship, imagine how amazing your relationship is when every time you speak to your significant other, you speak with with careful intent behind what you say. You don't say, "Pass me this."
for sure.
Like, "Hey, babe, listen, can you do me a favor?
Swing the salt.
Yeah, swing someone my way, or just do it in a cute way, like little things like that.
Yes.
Because what happens is, if you don't pay attention to the little things, people in relationships, that older married couple that, you say something to your wife, hey, lady, go get me this. And it's like, they're joking with each other, but they have they didn't start off talking like that to each other. That became the way it was because they slowly let it get away from them.
Yeah.
And then when there's romance lacking, there's lack of that affection. That goes because they didn't carefully nurture that.
Yeah.
And I think that's very important. So communication with all these building blocks that we've put forth, if you use them correctly and if you understand what they mean, I mean, you have a really good chance, if you have the right person in front of you, to build something big.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a year and 4 months in, and it feels like we've been together for over 5 years.
We're 4 months.
Plus.
Oh yeah, we are, because it's April.
I did the calculations. Calculations. So when I said that,
I was like, wait, 4 months? Wow. A year and 4 months. Yeah. Which is, like we said at the beginning, it's not a really long time. But again, how many relationships have people gotten themselves into, and within the first 4 to 6 months, it's already, catastrophe. I don't think catastrophe is a word.
Catastrophic.
Yeah, that.
Catastrophic.
I did check, by the way. Masterful is a word. So there's that. I actually, in the conversation we were having, I think that there is one last thing to add to the foundation, and it is to have fun. I think that's super, super important, and it's keeping that to help keep that fire, to keep the I can't English to help keep that fire alive, also adding fun, just like you and I are having fun when having this conversation. I mean, Drew did something amazing literally right before we started recording, where he sent me like this really cute invitation, like Evite invitation to like a date night, like a formal invitation, like outlining like the events of the night and like the meal that he wants to make for me and the things that are going to happen after. Like, that's so awesome, and it just makes me so excited, and it's fun. And I definitely think that within like the first things that we shared, all of those are more like serious things. But having fun is important. It's important to laugh, go on date nights, do an adventure challenge. I don't know, paint something.
Dance in the store together while you're online at Target.
Yeah. That's a big one for us. I randomly break out and dance, and Drew will follow, and we'll both look like weirdos, but it's fine. And that's what has worked for us. And I do want to again emphasize that these things are work in progress. Drew and I are not perfect by any means, but we make it work in the ways that we know how, and we've just shared them. So if there's anything that I would hope people get at it, is just to take one gem, one thing that they can apply.
Yes. And build that fire and let it blaze. I really appreciate everyone for listening.
Ditto.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your week, and good day to you.
Yes.